as if they knew. It was a promise.
Oh my God.
Have you ever been to South Africa?
Oh, yes, we have. Now, my husband's been there several times. I've only been there once. We went in, we got in the business, and we had the wild-type birds like everyone else. And my husband had trained animals for many years, worked in California a whole lot.
What kind of animals?
Rodeo acts. He had trained Brahma bull and mule, and he had one of his last acts. He had spotted boxers that played basketball. Harlem dog trot.
The Harlem dog trot. I've heard.
Oh, how fun!
You're often trained those.
And he really had some good acts. Worked in California for the last 4 or 5 years, but. He said, we were in it 2 or 3 years, he said, this isn't going to work, these animals are wild. And he said, we're going to get out of the business. And then we heard about this type in South Africa and such, and we went to South Africa and Israel in '90.
Israel has ostriches.
They had, it was very interesting because there was a guy that worked for the wildlife department in South Africa, and he smuggled eggs out of South Africa into Israel, and the agriculture department and all the higher ups in South Africa came to Israel to get the birds back. And he said, no, you didn't catch me. So he had a few in Israel, and then he crossed his with wild birds, so now they don't have any pure South African blacks or crosses in Israel. But we went to both countries, we searched the ostrich business and came home, sold everything we had and started all over.
Wow.
And the type we have are impossible to get. And we didn't do it, but what we had was smuggled out of South Africa. At one time in the early 1900s, they were smuggling them into Namibia. And then importing them out of there, we had to have import stations. It's very difficult, very expensive to do, and so that now it's impossible to get them out. And we pretty much have a monopoly on this type of ostrich, and we have more here than anywhere in the world outside of South Africa.
Could they properly be classified as an endangered species, or
not really? They're a livestock, and they're a descendant of the dinosaur, so there's nothing like them in the world. They're just the most amazing animal. They don't put any fat in their meat. Any fat they have goes under the skin or in the lining of the stomach. Leather is the best leather in the world. Ooh, that wind is starting to blow. And then the feather is the only thing in the world that actually picks up dust. And like the feather companies can only get 20% of the feathers they need for feather dusters in the United States. The good feathers either have to come from South Africa or for our ranch. They can't even use, on the wild birds, they can't even use those feathers for the feather dusters. They don't have the barbs on them to pick up the dirt. And they're too stiff and hard. So the whole bird is usable. And they're amazing birds. They're honestly a way to help feed the world. A lot of countries are looking at them as a way to help feed the world, including China, who has 1.3 billion people to feed.
Tremendous food source, reproducing, as you explained to me. They do a tremendous food.
Because you raise them on very little land. They're the best feed converter in the world. The meat is real healthy. You know, there's just a lot of reasons why.
Because the hens lay between 80 to 120 eggs
Well, 60 to 80. A good
How often do they
hen
lay?
like we do.
And these eggs.
They lay every other day, and out here
That
they lay
many eggs?
They lay about 8 months out of the year. Now you're not going to hatch and raise all of those.
Well, my God.
You're
no.
going to hatch and raise 5 to 10 of them even. But as we learn more about it, and we'll go into artificial insemination and everything that the turkey or other industries have done, will eventually be done with the ostrich. And they're environmentally friendly. They're just an amazing animal, and the meat is extremely healthy.
See the egg. Look.
I know, I saw those.
And it's dense. And the equivalent sheet of about 2 dozen, 20 or 2 dozen chicken
Well, you can
eggs.
make. Do they taste comparable?
They're a little bit, yeah, they taste pretty much like
more
chicken
gamey,
eggs.
or-
They're a little bit sweeter and a little bit fluffier. No, they're a little better, really, than chicken eggs. And have a real orange yolk, kind of like farm fresh eggs. I have had chefs buy these for quiche or different stuff with a lot of eggs in them. And they're a lot healthier for you. They're lowering cholesterol and stuff, just like the meat. So they're really
Well, my
interesting.
question is, this is not meant to be insulting or anything, but if they're that prolific and the one egg is comparable to 1 dozen of eggs, why are they so much? Why do they cost so much?
Well, because the shells cost $10.
I know, but I'm just questioning, like, bargain shopper.
We figure it costs us $25 to produce an egg.
That's my answer.
So the shells that we sell for $10, we lose money on,
Okay.
or the egg
Sure,
shells.
sure.
But those are the ones that were infertile or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she said that you can buy one and use part of it at a time. You don't have to cook that
Sure,
all at once.
yeah.
Sure.
2 dozen eggs.
And you can keep them 2 or 3 weeks even out of the refrigerator because they're fresh and they lay out in the desert sometimes a month before they quit laying and settle.
No kidding.
So
And do they lay out just the flat ground, or do they have to have a nest of some
they
sort?
usually, now in our breeder camps back there, they will build sand nests and lay in, but they also will move their nest around all the time.
And do they
The males will
challenge
build
each
the
other's
nest.
eggs? Does someone come along?
No, they all lay in the same nest.
Do they have a predator?
No,
No.
no.
So
42 days, right? 42 days.
In the
to
incubator.
hatch.
Yeah.
To hatch. And then
Yeah.
they have incubators. Some they keep them. And they have those. It's fascinating. You know,
It
in,
is fascinating.
in a lot of parts of the world, in Africa, there are a number of endangered species. Endangered because the natives themselves, whose need for food is great, so they kill elephants and they butcher them in
Oh,
a
I
horrible
know.
way. Elephants, rhinos, and gorilla, which is terrible because they don't eat. I don't know if they eat gorilla, but they kill them. But do these native populations go after turkey ostriches at all? I mean,
The wild ones, they're going to have a pretty hard time
Catching them
because
up.
some of those wild ones will attack a freight train.
Oh my God.
I have had 2 different people sitting here, one from Tanzania and one from Zimbabwe, on a motorcycle, and they told me almost identical stories. One of those wild ostrich got lined out with them, and they couldn't outrun them.
Oh my God.
We're both scared to death because the wild ones sometimes they're tall and kind of cigar-shaped body, and they are mean dudes. They have to have 8-foot fences to hold them. You can't go in and get the eggs. I mean, they are mean dudes.
they can run perhaps as fast as 40 miles an hour. Is that what you that fast? 40 miles an hour. Yeah, they said the principal enemy is dogs that come down from the mountains. The dogs
Yeah,
will
or
come
when we lived
Because
on the
they'll get
edge
'em
of
at their
town, or they will chase them till they run them into a fence, or they run
And then
them
they
till
get
they
'em.
lay down, or
Yeah.
just exhaust them.
That's
and
too
they'll
bad.
drown in the rain, just like turkeys. They hold it
No
up and they
way.
drown.
Are they?
Young ones. We had a flash rainstorm through here one day, and it never rains in Arizona, and we had a bunch of young chicks about 3 months old out by our barns. We have barns we raise the chicks, but we turn them out in the day and put them up at night. And before we could get all those birds in the barn, we lost about 5 or 6 of them.
Oh,
just
how big are
drowned
they?
in the rain.
How big is a chick?
They grow a foot a month, pretty much. So a 3-month-old is probably 3
And they
foot.
drown.
They drown.
That's too bad. Well, should we go out and do
Whatever.
our feeding event?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay.
So we're gonna do 2 of us. Now, how do we do it? We don't really go in there with them.
No.
No, of course not.
We have ostrich and deer both to feed. Now the deer are through the white gate on the other side.
But the deer you can go in with.
And they'll eat out of your hand real
Okay.
gentle. There's a little fence so they won't jump on your back.
Okay.
The ostrich will eat out of your hand. It's got to be flat, a little in the palm, and the best way is down low, close to the fence. Raise it real slow, and you can control how hard they peck you that way. And they have no teeth, so they're just going to peck you and scare you. Or we have little feeders to put it through the fence, or pans on the back deck to put
How
it in.
hard do they peck? Show me.
Oh, they peck you pretty hard, you know, but it's not really going to hurt you or anything.
Right. Okay.
That's how come if you'll raise it real slow, you can control how hard they peck you
Okay.
by how hard your hand is.
You know, it
And-
reminds me of something that professional, as an old insurance man in part. What problems, if any, do you have getting liability insurance for this place?
There's a company that does
Oh, they're
stuff
especially
like
in
this.
Ostrich
And
Ranch.
you know, I worked in insurance.
Oh, did you?
I
Yeah.
used to write insurance.
Well, you're much better off with Ostrich than you are with insurance. I'll tell
Well,
you.
I don't know. When my husband was in college, I worked for a real estate and insurance company
In Oklahoma?
in Oklahoma. And it was a very interesting place to work. It was a 3-man office, and I started on Monday. On Friday, one of the partners had run off with another man's wife.
Oh.
They had just left town. One of the partners was running around with his best friend's wife, and his best friend was the commander of the base there. There was a army base there, and he was the big dog over the whole base. And he had to deal with his wife, and I mean, she was calling and he was calling. I was answering the phone, and everybody wanted to know where everybody was. And then the third guy, he later ran for mayor of the town. I don't know if he got it or not, but you know, they were all well known in the town. But it was the 3-girl office. And the third partner, he and one of the girls would go to the back office and spend all afternoon, you know. And he'd write her checks for
Expenses.
expenses or whatever.
Naturally.
And I was very young and naive, and I mean, I
poor
learned
girl.
a whole
you
lot.
learned a lot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
The head salesman literally chased me around the desk
Yeah, around
one
the
day,
desk, yeah.
so. But I did learn how to write insurance.
While you were on the go.
Yeah,
literally.
while I was on the go. I worked for another insurance company later, did computer stuff. But
Was this around Fort Sill?
Uh-huh.
Fort
Lawton,
Sill pays out
Lawton,
there.
Oklahoma. Do you know of?
No, I know of it, but
No, he knows the commander. No.
yes, I am that commander, and I've come back to chase you around this ostrich ranch.
I'll put it on camera
That's your
this
foot
time,
on camera.
so you can
Right.
sue the
Yeah, that's
hell
right.
out of
That's
him.
right.
Oh, I don't know that I'd run anymore. Oh, never mind.
Oh, well, then I won't put it on camera. It won't be any fun.
You know, it's like, well,
was
that's not
just-
the old joke about an old dog chasing a car. What would the old dog do if he caught it? If he ever caught the car? But no, this is.
But I mean, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, so I looked.
Okay, you're a big guy. Okay, now all you have to do is watch. Nothing. It's already.
that, huh? God, I'm not seeing anything.
Just keep being focused. Just aim it at us. Can you see me?
Yeah, I see you now.
Thank you.
I don't think I got that.
There you guys.
Called the vomitorium. And the vomitorium is exactly what the word vomit is. It's from a Latin word, vomitare. And as you recall, perhaps the Romans had orgies in which you would feast wine and food and everything for days at a time, and at regular intervals you go out and relieve yourself by going to the bathroom or by vomit. And in the vomitorium, that was where you induced retching. They had, like billiard cues, they had racks of ostrich feathers, and they would tickle themselves with ostrich feathers to make themselves vomit.
Oh,
And,
now
that's you know, these Pompey and the Roman emperors and all that.
Now you know a new thing.
No, that's a new one. I hadn't heard that. Now, I've got a little book, some information. I had a guy come by here. He was an archaeologist and had dug a lot in Israel. He was a minister, but he had a radio program in Phoenix, and he came by to get an eggshell for his program. And you know, they have a lot of the ostrich eggs are buried in the tombs, in the old tombs. And they have found even the carved eggs and all kinds of real decorative eggs in these tombs. But he gave me a book and some information that's been out of publication since 1921. And in it, it told how that the ostrich eggs and meat have been eaten for centuries. And at one time, ostrich brains were a delicacy that they would send to the kings and such of foreign countries as gifts, because they were such a delicacy. And now it wasn't in this book, but an interesting thing is some of the diamonds that they discovered in South Africa were from ostriches. They found the diamonds in the ostrich manure, and then they went to trace it back, trying to find where these.
For heaven's sake!
They swallowed rocks and gravel. And
swallowed
rocks and diamonds, and they were cutting open ostriches for a while. They were trying to find diamonds in their stomach because they were eating the diamonds, and then they were traveling long distances, so they were all searching for the diamonds, trying to trace the ostrich where they'd come from, and this and that, and killing the ostriches for the diamonds in their stomach.
Isn't that the life?